Yeah, the story there's two stories about that I tell. That Frank Sinatra stayed up till dawn is his whole life. You know, whether you're on the road or off the road, he stayed up till dawn. He wanted you to hang out with him. And that was fun for about 10 or 11 years, but then after a while I said, so where are you out? And I'm a golfer. I like to get up in the morning and go play golf sometimes. One night we were doing one-nighter, and one time we were doing one-nighters all around the country, and one-nighters, and we ended up in Las Vegas. We were opening at the Desert Inn, and opening night we did 2 shows. Now it's 4:30 in the morning, and Frank is sitting around with all these guys, and they're all talking, and I know this is going to go all night again. So I get up from the table, and I say, hey, where are you going? I said, I'm going to bed. He said, what for? I said, I got to get up early in the morning, go to the cemetery and visit those guys. He said, what guys? I said, all those guys who died trying to stay with you every night. He said, go to bed, go to bed. And he made me tell that story all the time. At his funeral, I had to speak at his funeral, and I was a pallbearer. And I knew he'd want me to make them laugh. I knew that I could hear him in my brain. Because every night I was going on stage, the years I worked with Frank Sinatra, every night I was going on stage, he'd say, Tommy, you going on? I said, yeah. He said, well, be funny and be brief. That was his favorite line to say. Be funny and be brief. You know, it got to the point where I'd say that. He'd say, be funny. I'd say, and be brief. Yeah, you know. So anyhow, but at his funeral, I knew that I wanted to make the audience laugh. I knew that that would please him. And the priest told me that I follow communion. I'd be the first speaker. You know. So now after communion, I get up and I want to get near the lectern, so I'm near the audience when they motion me. Near the congregation, and I'm thinking to myself, and it's really solemn, and I loved Frank Sinatra. I loved him like a father. He was a friend, but he later became like a father to me, and so I didn't want to get melancholy, and it was very easy to do, you know, and because Frank used to tell me, I'm Irish and Italian, I'm Sicilian, and Frank used to say to me, Sicilians don't cry, Tommy, they cry alone. I said, but I'm half Irish. He said, Irish cry when they change bus drivers, you know, so. So I didn't want the Irish side to take over for me. So now they're getting the communion's over, and I think it's time for me to go speak. And the priest motioned me to stay where I'm at, and the choir starts singing Ave Maria, which, you know, the problem with being at one funeral, it reminds you of all the other funerals you've been to, my parents and so forth and so on. So I'm getting melancholy. I said, no, I don't want to do this. I'm gonna make them laugh. So I started looking at the wall and said, they ought to fix the plaster over there. They ought to fix the painting over there. Yeah, now Ave Maria is done. I look at the priest, he motions me again to stay where I'm at. And now you hear the church go so quiet, you can actually hear the pews crackling. And you hear Frank Sinatra's voice coming over the loudspeaker, put your dreams away for another day. And the whole church burst into tears. Now I'm facing them, and there's Tony Bennett sobbing, and Vic Damone, and all of his friends, that he's Gregory Peck and Kirk Douglas and Robert Wagner and Jill St. John and Angie Dickinson, and they're weeping, and his wife Barbara's weeping, his first wife Nancy's sitting next to her, and his second wife Mia is sitting next to him. I mean, the second wife was Ava Gardner, and she passed away, or she'd have been there because he remained friends. The whole church is weeping, the children. Now the song ends, and the priest, come on over, be funny. And I'm on the way to the lectern, I'm thinking, you did it again, Frank. It was always a challenge to open for Frank Sinatra, but now I had to make this church, and they're wiping tears out of their eyes. But I said, if you knew Frank Sinatra, you knew he stayed out till dawn every night of his life. And he wanted you, and many of you had to stay out with him. One night we landed in Fort Lauderdale. We're going to work the Sunrise Theater for 1 week. The first 3 nights, though, we're going to do Daytona one night, Sarasota one night, and Fort Myers, Florida one night. And our first night was off. So the moment that private jet landed, squad cars and limousines rush us to the hotel. Frank gets out of the limo, goes straight into the lounge, and I tiptoe out and go up to my room and said, great, I'm going to get up and play golf in the morning. I'm not in my room. 5 minutes, I hear it pounding on the door. I open the door, it's a big bellman, looks like a linebacker for the Miami Dolphins, big crew cut. He said, Mr. Dreesen, Mr. Sinatra wants you downstairs in the lounge. I said, could you do me a favor? I reached in my pocket, I pulled out $20. Could you tell him you couldn't find me? Mr. Sinatra gave me $100 to tell you he wants you downstairs in the lounge.
That's the one I remember. I think that was a great thing. It was great. I love that.
And now my $20 looks like nothing. I said, couldn't you just tell me you couldn't find me? He said, if you resist and I had to drag you down there, he'd give me $200. I said, I had to go down there. And he said, hey, Pally, where you been? And we stayed up till dawn again, you know.